Hi, and welcome to this live reading from How, a Stalker series novel by Megan Mitcham, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, Raid. Again. She'd been 5 times in the past hour. Libby Irish snapped her boots together and clenched her legs. No room to cross them. The tactical response vehicle traded its consistent jitter for an all-out lurch. An expletive popped like a flashbang from the front, and Joel toppled as though a sniper's bullet had cut him down. She wasn't that lucky. A terrible thought. There it was, all the same. Travis, the FBI SWAT team leader, stayed him with a single massive hand. He nodded toward the top of the rig. Handle before you end up with your face in someone's barrel. Laughs and whoops reverberated around the 8x4 footprint. Out of 12 federal agents cramped in the tin can, she was the only woman, and the only one who kept her snicker to herself. Hell, if Irish had found us a decent point of entry, we wouldn't be tossed around like a bunch of pinballs. Joel grabbed the handle with both of his shaking fists. She wished Travis had let Joel take a barrel to the nose, but showed no outward reaction to the man's ignorant words. At least she was the only one who knew she had to pee. Her hands were as sure as the big guys next to her, and she took solace in that. You should be kissing Irish's ass. Travis hitched an elbow toward her. She found this route when none of us did. Dodging potholes in a rig is a fuckload better than dodging bullets in Kevlar. The men answered with nods, grunts, and hell yeses. Libby schooled her features as though she hadn't heard a thing. The Atta girl spun in the vortex of her mind, bringing fresh air to a space caught in the vacuum of office politics. With a boss who hated her based solely on her gender, covertly, of course, this was a banner day in so many ways. Ross Quinn, her boss, knew how to play the game, which was why Joel was here at all. The dummy had his chance at this case for the past 3 years and had turned up squat. Had she been given a choice of who to bring on the op, she'd have chosen Alec, someone, hell, the only one, who watched her back at the bureau. Until Travis. 60 seconds till contact. Travis pointed at Libby, the lead on the op, the lead on the case against the single citizen with the greatest cache of weapons ever known. Libby hugged the assault rifle to her chest. She was all for the Second Amendment. However, stockpiling to start a rebellion from a tyrannical government that didn't exist except inside the schizophrenic's mind? Nope. Not even a little. His illness didn't stop the few hundred followers he'd amassed from joining his cause. That put everyday citizens in harm's way and infringed on everyone's civil rights. 10, 9, and Joel secured shipping containers on the west side of the compound. She barked. The elite team members offered 2 fast checks while Joel groaned his. Before he was finished, she continued. 8, 7, 6 rear entrance breach. They confirmed quickly. They knew this. Everyone on the mission knew it. They'd been over it no less than a dozen times, but this was no conference room. This was no warehouse. This was go time. 5, west side of the house, and 4, the east side. The men nearest her clipped their confirmations. 3, 2, with me at the front. The 2 standing in front of her bumped fists and offered her nods. There's 1 known occupant in the house, our target, Daryl Haggerty. Haul ass to your posts. We moved together at Travis's command. She didn't have to pee anymore. Her blood churned and her muscles ached to move. Travis stood. You heard the lady. I'm in your ear. If anything goes sideways, keep moving. Probability of bombs and traps are low, but 2, 6, and 9 are checking and clearing before entry. Libby and every other man in the vehicle gave the all-set signal except for Joel, who seemed to be in the midst of a panic attack. Ornby, you gonna puke? Travis hollered. No, sir, Joel gagged. Good. You puke in my rig? You lick it up. Travis gave the signal and everyone stood. A beat later, the tactical response vehicle rolled to a stop. Excitement sizzled through Libby's veins. Let's move, Travis barked. Libby pulled the lever, swung the door wide, and leapt out into the final curve of the dirt road before it bypassed the rear of Haggerty's property. A thicket of evergreens shielded them from the view of the house. Travis and her breach team joined her. Commotion drew their attention back to the truck. Joel shoved his way through the group, clung to the door, and spewed. The chunks of burger he'd eaten back at the warehouse they'd set up as base were as appetizing as every word that had ever come from his foul mouth. Bile and barely masticated food nearly hit the rear wheel. Travis rolled his eyes. A few of the guys laughed, but most were too anxious to care. They were in go mode with their minds on the task at hand. He heaved once more and then spat before straightening and joining the group. You're with 10 and 9. Travis growled. He pointed at the two men who leapt from the truck to avoid Joel's mess and gathered on the far side of the tree line. The rest of the group hit the ground, splitting onto their assigned teams. 2 and 3, Travers and Knowles, flanked her, and they moved toward the property line, leading the group. At the east edge, she found the old, broken-down 18-wheeler. They used the rusted-out frame for cover and pushed to within 200 yards of the house. Her heartbeat throbbed inside the tips of her fingers, but her breathing was slow and steady. She checked back, saw that everyone was together, then gave the signal. By the end of the hour, her career would be made or broken. A grin set her mouth, and she ran for the northeast corner of the one-story house. Cut and crinkled wiring hung from a metal pipe protruding from the ceiling. Yellow paint curled up from the siding revealed worn brown underneath. The sound of static found Libby's ears. It was as if the house itself was a static channel on an old bubble front television, operable but no longer functional. Most of the skirting had long ago fallen from around the structure. It littered the ground along with shards of glass from the cracked windows that had been boarded up. She signaled Travers and Knowles. They nodded, and the group pushed carefully forward, dodging slats and rusty nails as they made their way to the front porch. "C-team in place and ready," they said through her earpiece. The sound of static grew louder still. Movement of a white curtain froze her to the ground just an inch past the front edge of the house. Travis's barrel jerked high toward the center of mass through the wall. Knowles swiveled toward the rear of the house, centering his weapon at the window in the middle of the long wall. Libby held her breath. She eased to the slats 1 centimeter at a time, reached for a mirror in her vest, and lifted the telescoping lens around the corner. Indeed, a white curtain had moved at the front of the house, but not because a person moved it. Wind tickled her skin and ruffled the light fabric. She stowed the device and turned to her teammates. "The window is open," she mouthed. "The curtain is moving." She pointed at her ear, emphasizing silence. She climbed onto the porch and crawled on her knees, in one hand under the window to the far side of the door. Both men followed suit except Knowles, who stayed on the opposite side of the door. Travers remained crouched. He let the M4 carbine slip to his side, held in place by a strap, and then produced a tiny camera on a bendable housing from his pocket and slipped it under the door near the corner. He pulled a phone from his pocket and watched as a video of the cluttered room beyond filled the screen. Haggerty sat in a recliner 10 feet from the front door. A laptop balanced on his hoisted legs, the dirty bottoms of his swollen bare feet resting on a threadbare footrest. His fingers pecked at the keys. Libby expected to see guns of every shape and size littering the tabletops, countertops, and end tables, and even leaned against walls, but there were none. Well, not zero, but not near the count she had expected. Her stomach bottomed out. The nausea Joel had been battling minutes ago caught up with her. Maybe there had been something in the burgers. If only. This was her guy, no question. She'd followed up on the deliveries, his web traffic, and the satellite images. The guns had to be in the shipping containers. They had to be. Travers directed her attention to the end table next to the recliner. There was a gun. One freaking gun. A single gun. Woo-hoo. She only cared about that one gun because it was really close to her suspect. Knowles hugged his rifle a little closer to his chest. Travers nodded. They were all thinking the same thing. Is this the guy? How do we get him without getting shot? Libby signaled Knowles, pointed at her flash grenade, then to his, and then at the open window. He nodded. The camera panned up and around. There were no traps, no bombs, none that they could see anyway. Travers stashed the equipment and then nodded. Libby covered her mouth. "A team in place and ready. A team in place and ready," she whispered into the comms. Then they waited. The more time that passed, the larger and more terrifying doubts shadows came. Sure, Joel hadn't found any leads on the case. In the year that she'd had the case, she'd found leads, 3 dead ends, and this one. What if this one, the one that utilized hundreds of man-hours SWAT and base support, was another dead end? If it was, she hoped Haggerty was a good shot and went for her first. "B-team in place and ready," they whispered. Knowles pulled the flashbang from his vest. Libby pulled hers. Travers pulled the battering ram from his pack. "On my mark," Travers breathed ever so quietly into the comms. 3, 2, 1. The old wood splintered. Knowles launched his grenade through the open window. The door flew wide. Libby chunked hers into the house. Boom! Boom! They moved as a unit through the door and into the house in seconds. Haggerty's laptop lay on the ground. He screamed and lunged for his gun. No! Libby screamed and trained the barrel of her Glock on his chest. She did not want to shoot him, but she would. Haggerty's watering eyes found her gaze and stalled for a beat. It was all the time Knowles needed to secure Haggerty's pistol and continue through the house, clearing as he went. The team poured in front from the rear and split off in their respective directions. Libby stared at the scraggly kept bearded man who tested the stability of the oversized chair. Darrell Haggerty? He glared at her. Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have reason to believe you have illegally amassed a significant cache of weapons. Travers moved in with cuffs, grabbed the man's left wrist, and placed the binding around his meaty wrist. In a flash, Haggerty plunged his right hand between the chair's cushion and his big thigh. The bright silver of a long-barreled handgun gleamed as he drew it from the chair. Gun! Libby fired a single round. It tore through the first two knuckles of his right hand. The Desert Eagle 50 AE clattered to the ground. Darrell Haggerty shrieked as though he'd never seen blood. Knowles skidded to a halt in the center of the room. Fuck me. Fuck you, Trevor squealed. Fuck me, I thought I was shot. Would have been. Knowles rushed forward and helped him cuff Haggerty. The two agents hauled the man across the small living room and through the splintered front door away from any other stashed weapons. I need medical attention for Haggerty and a report on those shipping containers, Libby demanded into the comms. Critical? Someone asked. Negative, she assured, although the guy crying wouldn't believe it. Joel? Containers? Libby barked. I don't know how to tell you this, Joel wheezed. Libby's heart sank. This is 10. They're loaded. Stuff so full you'll be here cataloging for days. Hell, weeks. I've never seen so many guns. And I'm from Alabama. Chapter 2. Badass to Pussy. You should take the day off, Larkin's voice filtered through the speaker of Libby's cell phone and echoed off the mirror and tile. Says the woman who's worked so much she built a condo directly above and adjoining her office. Libby wrestled with the back of her earring. Okay, but I built that so I could get more than 2 hours of sleep. She muffled a curse as the tiny piece of metal slipped through her fingers and landed on the floor. It bounced several times before coming to rest near the tip of her black pump. When she crouched low, the muscles across her lower back tensed and burned. Nearly 40 hours spent scooping rifles off the dirty floor and hunching them over the computer, cataloging them into the database had taken its toll. We didn't leave Elk State Forest until midnight. The plane didn't land until 2:30 a.m. Libby squeezed the fastener between her thumb and index finger, secured it back to the back of her simple pearl earring, stood and assessed her reflection. Puffy eyelids. Dark circles below her eyes matched her extra flat dark hair. There wasn't time for makeup, and really, what did it matter? At the office, she wanted to impress everyone only with her work ethic and drive. Makeup only attracted the wrong kind of attention. She learned that on day one. Libby offered herself a grin. At least she had her smile. With her big lips, it distracted from her obvious lack of sleep. Over the years, she'd learned it put people at ease. It also made them underestimate her. By the time I got home, I was too amped to sleep. She snagged her phone from the counter and hit the light on her way out of the bathroom. Scooping the hulking computer backpack off the bedroom floor, she slung it over her shoulder, crushing the air from her lungs. Because you got him, Larkin squealed. I did. Libby headed for the kitchen, but paused in the short corridor. Her fist double-punched the air above her head. I finally did. Joy she hadn't gotten the chance to fully embrace wrapped its arms around her and squeezed, lifting it with it all the doubt and worry she had shouldered for the past year. Now, we celebrate. Hell yes, we do. She hurried to the fridge and pulled a pre-prepped meal from the cold, shoved it in her pack along with an apple and a cashew bar, and headed for the door. We'll have to do it in Jen's hospital room, Larkin whispered. Libby paused with her hand on the knob of the back door. Of course, I'm totally fine with that. I feel guilty for leaving during her ICU stay. She plucked her car keys from the counter. I'm just glad she's in a real room now. Real hospital room, Larkin corrected. She's ready for her real bedroom. I bet she is. Libby unlocked the door, opened it, and released a truly blood-curdling scream. Libby? Libby, what's wrong? Are you okay? Libby? Shit. Libby shivered and gagged a little. Yes, I'm fine. She backed into her house several steps, staring at the bloody carcass at the center of her threshold. What the hell happened? A snake? No, Larkin. Why are you so obsessed with snakes? I've lived here for 2 years and have never seen a snake. Wait, I know why. I learned it in Psych 101. Freud taught me. She laughed, thankful to have something besides the dead rat to think about. Laugh it up, but you were the one bursting my eardrum 2 seconds ago. Sorry, I'm trying to leave for work, and my neighbor's cat left a dead rat on my porch. Again. It was Larkin's turn to gab. Ugh, vomit. She didn't mention that she shot someone's knuckles off 2 days ago without flinching. Larkin would want to know why, and then she'd tell the girls, and then they'd worry more than they already did about her chosen profession.